So here's what we bet on. Haven't released this to subscribers, but we did bet 616 Southern Utah plus 6.5, Southern Utah plus 6, 629 over 143.5, 144 Montana State, Northern Colorado, 306 570 Vermont at -4, and a small money line bet there. 619 over 144 on Fairfield Sacred Heart. 309 024. Oh, no, that was a tennis that went off early. Forgive me. And 621 Sam Houston. And then I see a difference of opinion. It's funny. One group bet game 629. They came in and went over 143 Montana State, Northern Colorado. 5 minutes later, another group came in and went under 143. 608 Central Florida and Utah. One went over at 157.5, and the other came in 157. Actually, they laid -115 to go over 157 and 157.5. And when they moved it up to 158.5, 159, other group came in and bet the under. So my goal is hopefully it lands somewhere there in the middle. I could cash with both groups. Otherwise, I'm just going to lose a little vig on that Central Florida and Utah game. Like I said, the first group went over, and as soon as that line moved up about a point and a half, 2 points, other group came in and bet the under. Shows you not only just how tight these lines are, but sometimes there's manipulation as well. I always talk about I don't have access to all the information. I don't move for every group that's out there. And a lot of times you'll see this happen where they'll fire. I talk about it all the time. All it takes is a limit bet or two in the right account. And next thing you know, it's getting hit 5, 10x the other way after the movement opposite of the initial move.
I want to start off with a little Big 12 action. Arizona State, Kansas State. What are you looking at this one?
Well, we got some of the also-rans in the Big 12 in this one, Steve. But, there's got to be a point spread winner in every game. And we're looking at this one. Arizona State, they come into this matchup 1-10 straight up over their last 11 games. Ironically, that one win, Steve, it came against Kansas State, who they're playing today. Now, the Arizona State losing streak has been the result of two things. Defensively, they've allowed opponents to shoot 55, 57, 59, and 45% over the last 4 games. That in itself is going to get you beaten games. But here's where it's really been ugly for Arizona State. Over their last 9 games, they've been out rebounded, and I had to add this up twice to make sure of this number. 100 rebounds. They've been out rebounded by 100 rebounds over the last 9 games. If you're giving up a high percentage of shots and you're getting crushed on the boards, you know what's going to happen? You're going to lose a lot of basketball games, and that's what's been the story for them. Kansas State is going to want to slow the tempo down. That's the way they play defense, and I think that's going to frustrate this Arizona State team. I'll go ahead. I'll lay it with Kansas State. I'll be honest with you. This number last night was 5.5 when we were breaking it down for the show. We have seen some movement this morning. We saw some sharp early money come in on the Kansas State side, as I'm seeing it now up to 6.5, but it's still laying it with Kansas State for me. Well, again, here's a couple teams that were disappointments this year. And as you said, the ACC is down this year. Remember when the over-under would be, or they're going to be 7, 8 teams? How many are going to make the big dance from the ACC? Well, we've had conference expansion this year in the ACC, and yet we may have the lowest number of ACC teams that we have seen in probably as long as I've been doing this, Steve. But we got to have a winner in this one, and I'm looking here. Syracuse is another team. They come into the tournament, 6 of their last 7 games. They've allowed their opponents to shoot 48% or better in 6 of the last 7 games. That's not going to get the job done. Florida State went 1-4 straight up over the last 5 games of the season. But if you look at the 4 losses, 3 of those 4 losses were against Louisville, Duke, and North Carolina. That is probably, obviously, Louisville and Duke, along with Clemson, the 3 best teams in the ACC. and then you've got North Carolina and Wake Forest after that. So they played the top echelon of the ACC in that losing streak. And then the fourth loss in that stretch came to Virginia, and that was by 3 points, and it immediately followed playing that juggernaut of Louisville, Duke, and North Carolina. Florida State is better than their overall record would indicate. And what they've done, they've lost to the top teams, and they've beaten the teams that they were supposed to, except they did lose 2 games when they went to California. And I don't know that there's a worse travel spot in college basketball than that California to Florida road trip, or vice versa, Florida to California road trip. So I am going to dismiss their 2 losses to Stanford and Cal that one weekend. Florida State, they were 8-3 this year when facing a team with a losing record. That's what they're doing here. Syracuse beat Virginia in their season finale, but Steve, they are only 3-9 against the spread this year following a win. I'm going to go ahead and take Florida State. They've beaten the teams they were supposed to beat this year. I'll go ahead and lay it with Florida State in this one. Yeah, this is right where the line should be in this one. You've got the battle of the 8 and 9 seeds. And for some of these other teams, obviously, in the ACC, they're going to need to make a deep run if they're hoping to get an at-large bid. Virginia went 5-4 straight up over the last 9 games of the season, with 3 of those 4 losses coming to the teams we just mentioned in the last one, Duke, North Carolina, and Clemson, the three of the top teams in the conference. And Syracuse on the final game of the season. Now, I tend to dismiss a road loss in the final game of the season, is oftentimes these teams are mailing in that final game, looking ahead to the tournament if they really don't have a reason to play. And being the fact that they were 8-11 in conference going into that final game, they didn't have anything to play. They need to do something in the conference tournament to have any shot. Speaking of dismissing road losses in the season finale, could it have gotten any uglier for Georgia Tech? They were a complete no-show on Saturday when they went to Wake Forest, losing 69-43. Wake Forest, did have a reason to play in that game. They're one of the teams, they're the number 4 seed in the conference. Normally, the number 4 seed would be an automatic out of the ACC to get an at-large bid. But as bad as the ACC has been this year, I think Wake Forest needed that win. It put them at 21 wins on the season. So they had a reason to play in that one. Virginia did beat Georgia Tech 75-61 in Virginia earlier in the season. But I've got to note that Georgia Tech was absolutely in a horrible situational spot. Steve, you're a lot like me where we look at situations in college basketball, and it couldn't have gotten any worse for Georgia Tech, because in that one, they came into that game in their 2 previous games in a 4-day period. They upset not only Louisville, but Clemson in back-to-back games. And then they had to take on Virginia. You want to talk about feeling fat and sassy after those 2 wins? I think it was a horrible spot for them having to go to Virginia after those 2 monster upsets. 3 big games like that in a week period. And so I am going to dismiss that loss at Virginia. And I think they even the slate with a big performance here against Virginia. I'm not sold on this Virginia team. As you said, Steve, not the Virginia team that we're used to seeing over years past. I'll take Georgia Tech and lay the small number.
Yeah, you kind of talk about that Nets team going and actually beating outright the Lakers there 108-111. And that's the interesting part of it. I know Cam Thomas missed that game yesterday. There's a big trend of him or the Nets going under when he's not in the lineup. He was out due to injury management yesterday as well as Watford. And there's some thought that they will be playing. And I think the total moving up is a little bit telling. So I give this out to clients yesterday at 226. I do think that it's the over is the way to go here. 3rd game in 4 nights for the Nets as well. 4th game in 6. So some fatigue on their side. But like I said, Cam Thomas and Watford were out yesterday. They're a pretty young squad. They got guys like Tyrese Martin, who's playing a little bit better. Keon Johnson, Noah Clowney is also stepping up offensively. So even if Cam Thomas doesn't play today, they have gone over, I think, in a few games prior to yesterday as well. So I think they should be able to put up points here, even if Cam Thomas doesn't play. But Cam Thomas in does help a ton. They're over in 6 of the last 7 games with him in the lineup. The Cavs themselves, they've just been a strong over team in general all season long. 40, 22, and 1 to the over. At home as favorites as well, 234 combined per game in those spots, and we're seeing a total of at 228.5, and it's still climbing up. If you look at Cavs as double-digit favorites versus teams on no rest, they really push the pace and take advantage of these situations. In those games, 5-1 to the over, average 232 combined in those games as well. And then also, if you look at the net side, like I said, they put up 111 against a Lakers team that has been one of the more better defensive teams in the league in recent weeks. And I mentioned those guys, Keon Johnson, Tyrese Martin, Noah Clowney. They put up a good chunk of points yesterday against those Lakers. And if they're going to be able to help, this over, it's going to be those types of guys that get those threes. They shot, 18 out of 45 yesterday from 3. They're a pretty decent team as far as getting to the free throw line. They did miss a ton, but they got to the free throw line 30 times, 30 opportunities there. They also forced a lot of turnovers and also are one of the better teams in offensive rebounding. So points off turnovers, second chance points, those are all those opportunities the Nets can get to help the over here. I think that the Cavs can do whatever they want. So it's just a matter of what the Cavs can do to help get it over.
And let's look at the top game here at 7:30 Eastern, top of the rotation, Bucks and Pacers. Milwaukee currently about a 2.5 point road favorite. Total's hefty in this one also. It's gone from 232 up to 235. How are you attacking the Bucks and Pacers at 7:30 Eastern, Ronald?
Yeah, I'm actually looking towards the over again in this one. If you look at the Bucks side, they do have the rest advantage. Third game in 4 nights. If you look at the Pacers side, second game of a back-to-back, they are coming off 18-point losses, 4-point road favorites yesterday. Also more fatigue, right? Third game in 4 nights, fourth game in 6. So not sure the legs are going to be there to play solid defense. Halliburton is questionable, which is the only reason why I stayed off of this game, because his impact on this game can change the total dramatically. So if you look at Halliburton when he's on the court, their offensive rating for the Pacers, 116.8. When he's off the court, 106.8. So a huge 10-point gap right there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it goes from a defensive rating of 114.5 when he's on the court to 110.5 when he's off the court. So offense takes a huge dip. Defense gets a little bit better. So that's the reason why I want to wait if I was to play this game for Halliburton's status. But a lot of things are actually pointing towards the over regardless. If you look at the Pacers side as home dogs, they haven't covered that well, 3-5 ATS, but opponents in that situation, 7-1 to their team total over. So their defense definitely lacking in that spot. If you look at them on back-to-backs, 2-7 ATS, 7-2 to the team total over for their opponents in that situation. And if you look at the Pacers off a loss like they did yesterday, 18-8 to the 18-8-1 to the over. In those games combined, 236.8 average. And if you actually add to the fact that they come off a loss and they're the underdog in the game like they are today, they're 12-0-1 to the over in that spot, 121.4 per game on their side, giving up 124 per game. That's 245.5 combined. So I can see why the total is going up there. On average, too, if you look at their home and road splits, they are averaging about 6 points per game more at home than they are on the road. So offensively, they do better. Defensively, they struggle in this situation. If you look at pace of play, last 10 games, Bucks are 6th in pace. There's just a lot of things kind of pointing towards the over here. This is a pretty interesting game. I think if you look from a spot perspective, I think you look at Clippers off an OT win, a last-second shot by Kawhi. Then you go, and they're on the first leg of back-to-back games. I think initially when someone looks at that type of schedule, they're going to say, let's fade this team here. But situationally, if you look at from a league-wide perspective, I look since 2018, road favorites on the first leg of back-to-back games, coming off an OT game, 27-6 straight up, 22-8-3 ATS. They could be favored here for a reason. Is one of those types of things that myself and Ski like to say. You look at these types of situations and it's totally different than what you expect. Especially from a line or total perspective, sometimes the books are telling you a little bit of a story there. I think the Clippers are the right side. If you look at the Pelicans, they are coming off of a cover, right, against the Grizzlies. But the Grizzlies, they haven't been dominant at all in recent form. They failed to cover in 5 straight prior to that game as well. And if you look at the 3 wins or 3 covers prior to that, to those 5 games that they failed to cover, they were against teams who have been struggling heavily. So a lot of those covers, they're not really that impressive in my opinion. If you look at the Clippers side, they're on a nice 3-game win streak here. So I think momentum on the Clippers side is something that I would back here. I know Clippers are not a great road favorite situational team, but they are good on front end of back-to-back games, 9-4 ATS. If you look at the Pelicans side, they've not been great ATS wise overall on the season, and as home dogs, 4-17 straight up. So this is not a game that I expect them to win. At this number, I think it seems pretty high, but at the same time, from a X's and O's perspective, last 10 games, Clippers, I think they're better on both sides of the ball, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I know the numbers don't match up, but if you look at their opponents and who they played, the strength of schedule, a lot of things kind of show why the numbers are where they are. So Clippers do a better job of forcing turnovers. Clippers do a better job of limiting points in the paint opportunities, which is where the Pelicans thrive the most. So if they're gonna limit those, I can't see where the Pelicans are gonna be able to get their points here. So I would look towards the Clippers -7.
Yeah, let's talk Viktor Hovlund. That's a true stat, by the way. Yeah, let's talk Viktor Hovlund, and we're going to take his over 70.5 on his round 1 score. Normally, these don't come out till the day before, but this is the Players, Steve. Huge golf tournament. So they got these out earlier. So go back to August of 2023. Viktor Hovlund wins the FedEx Cup. Steve, he is the best. He's the champ. He does the unthinkable, which is he decides he's going to change his swing because he thinks he can get better. He just won the championship. So he changes his swing, and what happens? It's a disaster. His last year was awful, and it's been even worse this year. He shot 73 in the first round here last year. He missed the cut last week, shooting 73 and 76. He's not even getting close to shooting 70. His putting is awful. It's 16th worst in this field. He's horrific around the green. He's outside the top 75 driving in the field. And now he's making fun of himself, saying things like, yeah, that was the dumbest thing I could have ever done. I have very low expectations coming into tournaments now. He is just an absolute fade after winning. Steve, this would be like if Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl and was like, you know what, next year I'm going to be a running quarterback. I've decided this throwing is a little overrated. I'm really going to – it makes no sense. I have no idea why he changed his swing after winning the championship, but he's all fade material for moving forward. Yeah, 30-10 run in the NBA. NBA has been red hot. Catch one last night. Let's take a look at Bogdanovic over 5.5 rebounds plus assists. I don't know what's happened, but he's really started to – had the stat sheet with the Clipper over in 5 straight and 8 out of 10. He's getting over 5 potential assists per game and over 5 rebound chances. That's more than enough to get over this 5.5. He's gone over in 6 out of 7 games where Kawhi plays, which is tough to find 7 games that Kawhi plays these days. But when Kawhi has played, Bogdan's gone over. And they're playing the Pelicans, who, as you know, Steve, are just awful. 27th and 29th in defending rebounds and assists. They just gave up 57 rebounds and 24 assists to Memphis the other night. So they're awful. It's what a disaster season it's been for them. So fading them any way we can and trying to fade some of these other teams that have kind of given up on the season. So we'll go with Bogdan over 5.5 rebounds and assists tonight. You see the double name in UFC too. There's a lot of Magomeds. Magomed off, some of those things. Yeah,
it's common.
I'm going to take absolutely. I'm going to take a look at an underdog that I think is way, way underpriced, and I'm just worried that this is going to be the parlay buster. So we're going to take a look at Sungwoo Choi plus 390 over Kevin Vallejos. Vallejos is a really, really good up-and-coming fighter. He has 1 loss on his resume, and that's to Gene Silva, who those of you that follow UFC know Gene Silva's on a skyrocket to the top in UFC. So that loss has aged really, really well. He's going to be 5 inches shorter than Choi. And Choi is coming off of getting knocked out. You do have to worry about his chin, but I think that's Vallejos' only path to victory here. Choi, 2 fights ago, he actually beat Jarno Aarons by getting this to the ground and having really good top control. And Vieos is going to have to try and get into that reach that Choi has. Choi is going to have much, much longer arms and kicks. So Vieos is going to have to work really, really hard. Listen, if he gets to the chin and lands clean, can he knock out Choi? Yeah, absolutely. But if he doesn't, he's going to be the smaller fighter. He's going to be the one that has a disadvantage on the ground. I think there's some value in Sung Woong Choi at plus 390 here at the big price.